Today we've got a full in-depth review for you of the awesome little Sigma 30mm F1.4. This is for Sony E-mount APS-C cameras, but it is available for some other camera mounts as well. It will perform pretty similarly, but today we're breaking down everything that you need to know about this lens to figure out whether or not you should buy it. Let's get started. Welcome my friends, and thanks for joining me as we check out the Sigma 30mm F1.4. We're diving right in. Here's some specs to get you going. And if you haven't seen one of my videos, my name's Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news reviews and tutorials. So if you do enjoy this type of content and you like this video and it helps you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. Anyways, who do I recommend this for? Literally anybody. This is going to be a fantastic lens if you're just getting started out into photography. It's a versatile lens at a great price point with pretty darn good performance, as you'll see, and I recommend it to pretty much anybody. So there you have it, and with that out of the way, we're going to dive into the first category, which is build. So diving in and having a look at an unboxing, as well as the actual build and features of this lens, reveals the very basics, some paperwork, and the lens in a lens hood. And the lens itself does feel decently made. It is a mainly plastic construction, but does feel well put together. This lens is a great portable size, measuring 4 inches long with the lens hood installed, and only 2 7/8 inches long without, weighing only 265 grams. And this is one of the positive sides of a non-metal construction, making it easily portable and great for travel. To further keep costs down, you won't find any buttons or switches on this lens. The large grippy focus ring feels great, turning firmly and accurately. On the front you'll find 52mm filter threads, as well as Sigma's patented coatings to help with ghosting and flare. And on the back you'll find a metal mount with the obvious plastic construction innards, and unfortunately no rubber gasket for weather sealing. In the end, this is Sigma's contemporary line, so don't expect any bells and whistles for the most part, especially considering the great price point. For build, I give this lens 3 stars. Next, let's talk about the value of this lens, and I'm happy to tell you that there is a ton of it. For Sony E-mount cameras, there's really nothing comparable to this lens in this focal length, at this price point, and definitely not at this fast aperture. You've got the Sony 35mm F1.8, which does have image stabilization, but it's a lot more and not quite as fast. There's also the nifty 50 with OSS, but now we're getting into a different focal range entirely. So for what it is and what's available, this thing has phenomenal value, and I give it 4.5 stars. Now let's have a look at how this lens performs. And I have to say, for the price, it's actually pretty darn good. First, let's look at the autofocus here in video, and I would say that it's mediocre. It's definitely not the fastest, and it does hunt from time to time, but it will get the job done in the end. When it comes to stills, it's quite a bit faster, and I have absolutely no complaints. The autofocus noise is very minimal, and aside from a few audible ticks and clicks, it's nearly silent. The 30mm focal length is interesting because with the crop mode, it's about a 45mm equivalent, which is a very natural look, almost what the eye sees. So you're going to be able to get away with a lot with this lens, from landscapes to portraits. It's going to work well across the board. Its fast f1.4 aperture means that it's going to perform well in low light, and wide open, this lens can produce some incredibly beautiful out of focus backgrounds. It does have 9 aperture blades to assist in the beautiful bokeh, and its minimum focus distance is 30 centimeters or just under 1 foot. So let's dive in and have a closer look at the sharpness and optics of this lens. Wide open here at f1.4 in the center, the lens is actually quite sharp, no complaints whatsoever. However, the corners are nothing special at all. They're a little bit soft, and it's not actually until you stop down quite a bit. Here we are at f2, f2.8, f4, and it's not till about f5.6 where they really become decent. So don't expect amazing corner sharpness out of this lens, especially for the price point, but the more we stop down, f8, it gets to be even more reasonable, and at about f11 is going to be your max before you start noticing diffraction start to kick in and a bit of softness start to come back in after that. Even here at f16, it's still completely usable, especially in the center, but our best image quality is probably going to be in the range of f5.6 to f8. Once again, for the price of this lens, you really can't complain, and center sharpness throughout the entire aperture range is really quite nice. Having a quick look at distortion and vignetting, you will notice some barrel distortion for sure, and quite heavy vignetting, especially wide open. Use that profile correction in Lightroom to clear that right up, or as far as vignetting is concerned, just stop down a bit to see that pretty much disappear. It's also worth noting that this lens will suffer from some chromatic aberration, as you can see here, some purple and green fringing, but again, the price point, you really can't complain. This was shot at its minimum focus distance of 30 centimeters, wide open at f1.4, and at that distance, it's not going to be the best image quality, and contrast will suffer a little bit. But with all that aside, looking at performance as a whole, being a budget APS-C camera with not a heck of a lot of competition, it really does exceed expectations, and I'm not sure you could really ask for more out of it. I give it 4 stars for performance. So wrapping it all up, I really don't think there's a heck of a lot to nitpick about this lens, mainly because there's not a lot to compare it to, and definitely not at this price point. As always, here's my personal pros and cons for this lens. Rating this lens as a whole, I give it a solid 4 stars, and if you happen to be a subscriber, you also know that I like to rate things on a scale from never think about again to consider to definitely buy. And in this case, if you're looking for a great budget, versatile, all-around shooter that happens to be a super fast prime, well, you're in luck, and I would definitely consider this one. There you go, guys. There's my review of the Sigma 30mm f1.4. Hope you liked this video and it helped you out, and if it did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Join the community. If you want to pick this lens up, I'll drop affiliate links down there in the description for you as well. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.